Alrighty, Residence Life. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to your Residence Life speaker series. Today, we have an amazing and talented speaker with us today. His name is Joshua Seth. Joshua, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Just right before we went live, you saw one of my kids come in here. So there's no there's no pretending that anything other than what is happening is happening. And what is happening is the freaking world is shut down.
Yeah.
And suddenly I am teaching third grade math
Oh
from
wow.
home.
Oh wow. I can
Yeah.
only
And my
imagine.
kid's a sophomore in high school. So, I don't know what that's all about.
Got
No,
it.
I'm kidding. He's a third grader. And I have a
That's
first
funny.
grader as well.
Oh man.
Shout
Oh
out to the
man.
teachers. Please come back.
Yeah, my wife's a teacher, so whenever I'm doing one of these, she teaches all day, so I get
I
it.
should never have taken you for granted.
Never, never, never.
Take my children. A little bit. I
So
love
for
them, but
those
need a break.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
And there's nowhere to break because we can't leave. So
that's right.
you can't leave, you can't hide. So for those who are watching, you might not know Joshua Seth, and that's great if you don't, because he's going to tell us about all the wonderful and amazing things that he does. But Joshua Seth is the voice of some of the most popular anime characters of all time. And if you listen to his voice, you'll probably have heard him on over 65 animated TV shows or movies, hundreds of commercials, and literally thousands of programs. To adult fans in animation, he was the villainous voice of Tetsuo in the animated masterpiece Akira, which came out in 2001. Um, and as a world touring psychological illusionist, he's performed live in over 40 countries, has had 5 TV specials in South Korea and Japan, and won the coveted Magic Olympics at the Magic Castle in Hollywood, California. Joshua Seth, everybody.
Wow, what a buildup. I hope I live up to my past.
Yeah, I listen. I have no doubt. We're really excited to have you with us today and to hear all the wonderful things that you have to offer.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I almost don't know where to start. I know I've performed and possibly spoken at your college. I mean, there were years there where I did hundreds of colleges, on the tour with my live shows, and then later on speeches as well. So, I want to be of service to your students, answer questions, and be helpful with my knowledge because I have lived a life. I have lived 5 lives. I'm like a cat, you know.
Okay.
I came from nothing.
So
Like,
tell us
and
about
then
all. Yeah, so we can just jump
made
right
it all
into
up
this
as I went
thing.
along.
And it all just started coming to you.
A little more than that.
All right. So talk
Some
to
of
us how
that
you got
secret stuff
started
is
in it.
BS. There is something to like focus on what you want and don't fill your consciousness with the things that you don't want. I mean, certainly that's true, but it gets back to that idea of faith without works is meaningless. Like you also have to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. So how'd you get started in your career?
Okay, let's do the way back. When I was a kid, I was in a lot of musical theater, not just like, in elementary school, but like actual professional productions. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest in Ohio, and I like theater. I like performing from a young age, but there weren't really very many outlets like there would be if I'd grown up in New York or Hollywood or something. But there was this really, really good dinner theater. It had 500 seats when I started at 8. And the Broadway touring casts would come through town and they'd have to hire local kids to be in the cast. So that's how I started. And I learned to sing, which is eventually how I became a voice actor because I knew how to use my instruments, right? Which we'll get into later because it's the foundation of communication, your ability to speak, connect, communicate, be heard, make an emotional impact on people, not just the words and the content, but the feeling that you evoke in the listener. You learn that from singing. So, because the brain doesn't know the difference between speaking and singing. So, vocalists learn to use that instrument, but other people don't. Even though we're using the same apparatus, we're not unlocking all of its power if we're not trained. Does that make sense? So, that was my background. And then my
Yeah,
dad was a
absolutely.
radio psychologist. So, I'd go to see him work. That's how he built his practice, like Frasier in that old TV show, Frasier. He was a radio psychologist and had a call-in show. So I'd go there. I got familiar with the environment of, being behind a microphone in a recording studio. And when I went to college, I went to NYU, Tisch School of the Arts in the city, in New York City. And I got my own radio show. And I put together a demo as a result of that show, got a Hollywood agent, and the rest, as they say, is history. But then it took a good few years of continuing to train my voice and continuing to learn and grow and develop and not give up, which is what most people do. Take a little bit of progress every day, take another step every day, believe in myself when the world gave me no reason to keep going. There's never a question in my mind to give up. It took me 7 years until I got, quote unquote, famous for a voice actor anyway. So anyway, that's how I got started. That's the trajectory.
I think people definitely recognize your voice, though. I mean, I'm just listening to it now, and I'm like, wow, I think I remember it from this, or I think I remember this. So, like, what are some of the most memorable characters that you think people would probably recognize your voice from?
Sure. Well, let's see. I have this thing. I do these video shout outs on Cameo. You know what that is? So I wake up in the morning. It's like, oh, can you, wish my girlfriend a
Yeah,
happy birthday in the
it's
voice
like
of whatever. So like,
it's you
there's
get
some of the most
celebrities to
popular
do that.
characters,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So the main one I'm known for is Ty. I play Ty, the leader of the Digimon. Digimon was a #1 animated TV show on Saturday morning cartoons 20 years ago when we started, and we're still making them today. In fact, right before, and I mean right before the lockdown started, I was recording this movie, the upcoming Digimon movie, Kazuna, which will be out soon in Los Angeles. And I should circle back to that story later because I thought I would get trapped in LA. I don't live there anymore
oh,
in
okay.
order to do this recording.
Yeah,
But I'm also known as, like you said in the intro, the star of a movie called Akira, which I think is the best thing I've ever done. You could see it for free on Hulu right now, I think. And Forbes called it the most iconic anime in the lexicon. It's
yeah,
influenced everything from The Matrix to South Park and
yeah. They said
sci-fi, anime,
yeah,
manga. Yeah.
they said it changed the whole trajectory of which animation came at the time when it came out,
Yeah.
and then
Oh, I will tell
everything.
you this story.
Yeah, go
When
ahead.
I was a college student at NYU, I wandered into an art house theater to see this movie called Akira. At the time, it was the original version of it obviously before I got involved, years before. And I hadn't put two and two together that just because I had a radio show and was interested in the voice, that I could make a living as a voice actor. I didn't really think about that as a possibility. I don't know if I knew that I even would have thought that it's something that I could do. Like I said, I came from a small town in the Midwest. Nobody that I knew had any kind of unusual career path. Everything was just like a normal job where somebody hires you. Tend to just strike out on their own and as an entrepreneur and chart their own destiny. But I saw that movie, and it was the first time I'd seen animation that was specifically for adults. And before that, it was like all funny stuff, but like Bugs Bunny and Tom and Jerry and, stuff for kids. So there was no anime in America anyway at that point. There wasn't obviously Pokemon and Digimon because I hadn't done it yet. But I was real early to this transition because I saw that movie and I thought, oh my gosh, like American audiences are going to flip out when they see this. It's going to change the course of animation. I want to be involved and get in on the ground floor. And that's what inspired me to take my demo, send it to Hollywood, get an agent. And then fast forward 7 years, I was starring in Digimon and I had all kinds of other opportunities. As a result, I became the voice of the network for both Fox Kids and Kids WB. There's something called promos where the person just announces all the shows. So I did
Yeah,
that for lots. Next on an all new, I even did Pokemon. Next on an all new Pokemon on Kids WB.
yeah,
Or
that's
Fox
awesome.
Kids. I was the voice
Yeah,
of Tower Records. New Music Mondays only at Tower Records, which is bankrupt. But I had nothing to do with that. And just all kinds of commercials for Disneyland. Mom, Dad, can we go to Disneyland? And anyway, when I was doing all this work, finally, one of the roles that came my way was to star in the English dub that Pioneer put out of Akira. So the whole thing came full circle, and it really proves that everything in your life is connected. That every action you take, every thought you have, every person you meet is all connected in some way, fashion, or form. But we're not omnipotent to look down on our own lives and see that and understand that when it's happening. We just have to trust that it's true and then maintain integrity so that luck occurs. Preparation meeting opportunity being luck, right? Luck
yeah,
occurred because I stayed true to my passion to the point at which the world, universe, whatever you want to call it, caught up with the reality that I had in my own head. And then it became real in the world around me. Does that make any sense? Is that too
Yeah.
esoteric? 'Cause
No,
that's
no,
really how
no.
it
That definitely
happens.
makes sense.
It just takes time.
I guess for people who are watching, how do you find that voice? Because we talked to Steve Bloom
Oh yeah, he's
two
great,
weeks
isn't he?
ago. Yeah, he knew you were coming. He told
Yeah,
us to tell you hi. And
cool.
we have Chris Sabat on tomorrow.
Hmm.
So how do you go about finding like that inner voice? Like it just seems like it was so natural for you to just go from maybe your natural Joshua Seth voice to finding a different character or
Yeah.
background. So how do you like go about finding that?
Well, interesting. You should tell me, because since the world is shut down and I'm not on tour anymore, lately I've been giving keynote speeches to corporate groups and conferences and conventions all over the world on vocal communication skills, exactly what you were talking about, because it's important to be able to find your natural, authentic voice in order to communicate your value to other people. If you're in leadership, people need to know, like, and trust you. That's how you are able to make that connection. If you're in sales, you have to be able to enter into the emotional world of your prospect to convert them into a customer. If you want to be a voice actor, you can't go, "Hi, my name is Joshua Seth, and I've got fantastic pipes." Like, nobody wants that. Maybe a long time ago in the 50s or whatever. But no, people are looking for the real you. So that takes three things. It takes training your instrument, your voice. It takes connecting your body with your voice, because your voice is part of your body, physiology, in other words, posture, resonance, understanding how to, open your throat, connect it with your chest, support it with your diaphragm, lift and lengthen your spine, all this stuff, physiology. Alexander technique is a good discipline for learning that. That's what I took. That's what I teach, as well as part of my vocal training that I'm putting together. And then the mindset to have the confidence to put yourself out there. Here, this is what I'm working on now. This is the
Very
new
nice, very nice.
speech, which is train your voice, change your life. Because when you learn to do this, it will affect every relationship in your life, and the opportunities that you create are as a result of those relationships, both personally and professionally. I've just putting this together, which is a free giveaway that I'm making available. It's not out yet, but if you if you friend me on Facebook on my fan page, I don't know if you put a link up there or something. It's official
Yeah.
Joshua Seth.
Yeah, it's on the Facebook. So for
Okay, then
those
you
who are
can.
looking at it, it's on the bottom of the description of Joshua Seth's
Yeah,
background.
I mean, if
We
you're
put a
interested
link
in
there.
learning this, there's no charge or anything for this Facebook group, and I'm going to be beta testing everything for the new online training in the Facebook group, because like I said, I have the time, I have nowhere to go. This is the stuff that I teach in my high-level corporate training. I was the keynote speaker for Uber's Global Innovation Conference last year. I've done executive training at Deloitte. I'm going to be a keynote speaker for the $1 Million Roundtables Global Conference, which was supposed to be in Dubai. We'll see if that happens. And it's all this stuff. So people pay a lot for this, but I'm giving away access anyway to this group for free so that I can
That's
beta
awesome.
test the online version of this kind of training. The answer to your question is, how do you do this? Now, a lot of people that follow me want to use this for voice acting, but it's not just for voice acting. If you want to be a content creator, if you want to have a podcast, if you want to be a blogger, be an influencer, have a YouTube channel, increase sales and leadership acumen, or develop your skills for dating and relationships so that you are able to communicate with confidence and portray your true nature. And that's how you do it. But definitely the people that follow me want to learn to be a voice actor. So that's kind of where I'm starting and building out from that. Yeah, that's going to be the
Got
program.
it.
But the
Nice,
program
nice,
is not
nice.
available yet. You can't get it yet, but you can join the Facebook group. Yeah.
So how else can people follow you? Are you also like on IG? Or if people want to start following all of your social media handles, where can they find you?
Sure. Yeah. Joshua.Seth on IG. Also, I'm very active on Twitter. I don't know this. There's so much. I find everything amusing. I don't. I know people get like very angry about things, and I get that. Like, we're in a tumultuous time, but you got to realize, like, there's very little you have control over in life, almost nothing other than your own emotional responses to things. It generally doesn't do any good to get angry about stuff because it's just a mask for fear, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
And so I find things amusing. especially on Twitter. That's
No,
where I
I get
post the
it.
funny stuff. So just look up Joshua Seth on Twitter, and then official Joshua Seth on Facebook, which is probably where I'm most active. But the fan
Got it.
page, the private page, is all kid stuff. So if you want to see my trials and tribulations of homeschooling, go to the fan page. That's all about vocal training. But I'll tell you, the vocal training, let me address this though, because people think, well, my voice is just my voice. This is just how I sound. No, your voice has
Uh-huh.
changed throughout your life, right? It doesn't stop changing and developing just because your Adam's apple dropped and you went through puberty. You can continue to change. If you don't train it though, and you do get in a position where you need to speak for a living, you'll end up straining it. You'll end up, I was coaching somebody over the weekend. He needs to pivot in his business and make it online. So he's putting together promo videos, and he sounds kind of salesy, kind of fake, because he's trying to do this and he doesn't know quite how to place it. Right. So it's all of that. It helps with everything in life.
Got it. Got it. Did you do some work for Saban?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Talk to us about that.
I did a podcast over the weekend for the Power Rangers podcast or something like that, because one of the first things I did for Saban was the voice of Alpha 5 and Power Rangers. I was the second voice actor to do that.
Okay.
Aye, aye, aye. That guy.
Yeah. We had
How did I get
Walter
that?
Emmanuel Jones on last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Richard Horowitz, voice of Invader Zim. He was the first one to do it. But I got that opportunity after he left, because I already had relationships with people at Saban from doing other shows for them. And that's how things work. You're people watching this, you're in college right now. One of the benefits from college is to get outside of your comfort zone and make connections with other people and develop new relationships outside where it is that you come from, your own background, your own beliefs, your own ecosystem that you grew up in. It's one of the benefits of the mixing and mingling that occurs in a place like college. It's an important part of education. It's an important part of creative development too, because creativity is the ability to connect people, places, things, and ideas that never went together before, like peanut butter and chocolate.
Right. So you're talking that you did some leadership training. So talk to us about these leadership training, because you're all around the world. You're doing it, domestically, foreign. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So they bring me in to talk about now communication skills and how to get outside of yourself and have the courage to communicate and connect who you are, what your value is, what your ideas are, in a way that will land well with other people. Because I think I have a slide about this. Let me see if I can find that. If I have that keyed up here. Here it is. Okay. So we spend a lot of our life training our mind so that we will know a area of expertise, content, what we say. That's the 7% that's verbal. That tends to be what we learn in school, right? Formal education. But most of communication, the other 93%, is tone of voice and body language. Now that counts for a voice actor, because if you ever see a voice actor in the studio, we perform with our whole bodies, even though we're only communicating with our voice. And that's because tone of voice is how what you communicate resonates with the other people. So this is really how I train leaders to increase their effectiveness and their stickiness, is by training the instrument and expanding their range and learning how to play all the notes. Most people only play a few notes in their vocal range and register, and that's why they think they can't do funny voices or accents. And it's not about that. It's not about putting something on. It's about exploring and discovering the possibilities and limitations of your instrument. For instance, if you are able to place your voice in your chest region, you'll have more resonance, you'll sound more impactful and more authoritative. And if you know how to bring it up higher into your head tone and the higher notes in your register, it conveys more passion and connectivity with the subject matter. And of course, everything in between. And why is this important, especially for leadership? Because it pays to train your voice. They've done studies that show a 25% decrease in vocal pitch among CEOs of all genders is associated with an average increase of $187,000 in their average salary. So yeah, this is a soft skill, but it's an important one, without which you could know your content, but it's hard to believe in you and what you're saying. I don't tend to go into politics much, and this isn't a value judgment on this political campaign, but It comes to mind. You remember when Bloomberg was running for president?
You do.
For a while at first, it was just commercials. It was other people talking about him and his accomplishments. It sounded very impressive. He built this business. He had all this money. He had experience running New York and everything. And these people that spoke on his behalf, they sounded low. They sounded confident. They sounded authoritative. And then he got on the stage at the debate and he sort of sounded like this. And, all that impression that was built up from hundreds of millions of dollars worth of advertising was called into question because his vocal communication skill did not match his accomplishments. So he may very well have been that person that he was portrayed as in the commercials, but when it came time for him to open up his mouth and connect it with himself and himself with us, I feel as a vocal coach myself that it just fell apart. Does that make sense? Like it did not match up.
Yeah. And it kind of changed the public view of how they perceived him to
Perception.
be. It's always not about what you say. It's about how you say it and how it's perceived.
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah. Makes total sense. Makes total sense. So what is your plan moving forward with this COVID thing? I mean, how are you taking all of your operations? I know you were talking about your upgraded Zoom because your Zoom looks 100% more clear than ours does. And other people we've had come in, they Zoom from their phones, from the car, or had Zoom from iPads. So talk to us a little bit about your studio. Like, how did you pull the pictures up? Like, give us a tech 101.
Okay. Well, first of all, I knew none of this. Well, I knew the audio stuff, the mics, but I knew none of the rest of it 6 weeks ago. But I wrote an article in the magic community. Now, for a decade, I've been touring all over the world as a psychological illusionist, mentalist, and hypnotist. When I left Hollywood, it was to go on the road with the live show, which I love doing. I'm passionate about the art. But I didn't want to switch to doing virtual shows, which everybody in that industry decided they had to do. They're like, oh, I got to put my stuff online. And they just throw up a camera and they just do their show. And I find it very boring. And I just talk about perception becoming reality. If you have built up a following and a certain level of mystique around your brand or expertise or whatever, and then you're shooting yourself on a phone from your living room, what does that say about you and the care that you put into your craft? Now imagine that you went through 4 years of college and you got this expensive diploma, but then you sent out an email to prospective employers full of typos and grammatical errors. Like they would think that all the effort that you put into that was not worth it, amounted to nothing. That's essentially what people are doing by not taking any care in their presentations. So I can't say that I immediately made this pivot, but initially, well, here, this is what everybody does, okay? Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. This, okay? So there's a crisis, right?
Yes.
First comes paralysis. Oh, what is happening? The world is coming to an end. I'm going to stare at the news and eat a bucket of ice cream, right? I did that. Everybody did. A lot of people get stuck in that. When you pass through that comes the panic. Oh, it's going to affect me. I could lose my job. I could lose my scholarship. I could lose my ability to feed my family. I could lose my sanity homeschooling my kids. Whatever it is, you move from the paralysis of not even being able to process what's happening that's outside of your control to the panic of realizing that it's happening, it's going to impact you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then people get stuck there. That's where they get stuck in anger and they get stuck in fear. They get stuck in conspiracy theories. What difference does it make where it came from? It's here now. It doesn't matter if it came from China or Italy or a lab or a secret cabal or who the hell cares? It doesn't matter. This is the reality. Move on to the reality. It does nobody any good to be stuck in recrimination and blame. So now how do you move into the reality of where we are now, what we're going to do about it? You have to decide to pivot. How do you pivot? You say, this is what's happening. This is the new reality. I'm going to adapt to it in Darwin-esque fashion. And I'm going to take the value that I have and find a way to present it to the world in accordance with the limitations that I have been given. That's really all we can do. So I thought, well, what value do I have? I'm doing these communication trainings. People for years have asked me to apply it to voice acting. I haven't really been interested because executive leadership training pays a lot better than people that don't have jobs that want to be voice actors, right? But I have people that, I have like 3 million people that know me and my work, and many of them would like to learn the skills. So I'm like, okay, I've been given this time. How can I give back? I can start with that. And so I began to apply my expertise in this area. I started writing a syllabus and populating it with information that I'm going to teach and so forth. But then I thought, I don't want to be a hypocrite and say I don't want to do a show online because it doesn't look any good on your phone or whatever. I want to be able to present well. So I learned about lighting, 3-point lighting. I learned about mixing boards, and I use right now, like I started with a Yeti Blue microphone. Most people, they either have no microphone and they're using their laptop or their phone, or they upgrade to a $100 microphone, which is called a Yeti Blue. If they get beyond that, the Yeti Blue plugs into the USB port on your computer, but that means that you don't really have any control over it beyond the little knob on the Yeti. Or if you want to change things in your software, which leaves a lot to be desired. So instead, what I did was I took my knowledge from recording studios. I bought a mixing board. I patched a good mic. This is also only an $80 mic. This is cheaper than the Yeti Blue. It looks like a $1,000 mic,
Wow.
but a $1,000 mic isn't going to do any better than a $100 mic if your room isn't treated for it. Like those are soundproofing panels behind me, and what you're plugging it into is dampening the sound down to the point where what you're communicating isn't coming through. So I put it through a mixing board over there, an analog one, and connected the whole thing to the computer along with a DSLR camera and a cam link and lights that I can control with a remote, so I can do the whole thing myself, put some sound dampening panels up there, and created a better presentation out of it. And that gave me my second training topic, which if you go to joshuaseth.com, you can see it there. It's called Present Like a Pro. And I'm starting to pitch that as a virtual webinar, seminar, keynote, whatever you want to call these things, virtual interactive learning presentation, Present Like a Pro, how to up your game in your sales and marketing and leadership presentations online, because there's a lot of people that need to make this transition right now. So when you start making that pivot, you'll be surprised what you're able to create as a result. But it requires that you stop focusing on the things that you have no control over and start focusing on what you can do yourself, which always comes down to how can you serve? What can you give back? How can you benefit other people? Stop thinking so much about yourself and what can you give to others. That is the route to success. Can I have an amen?
Amen. Yes, yes, yes.
It's true.
So kind of in conclusion, do you think that any of the characteristics of Ty are very closely related to how we should perceive life?
Yes, because his is the crest of courage.
After
all, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the desire to move past the fear and do the thing that needs to be done anyway. And that is a habit. It's the habit of knowing the right thing and committing to taking that action, regardless of the risk. One of my favorite authors is Marianne Williamson. She wrote a book called A Return to Love. And it boils down to this, that all human behavior is motivated by either fear or love. So what we call negative emotions like anger, jealousy, rage, recrimination, blame, these are all masks for fear. We are afraid of not being in control. We are afraid of losing something. We are afraid of an outcome that we don't desire. And what we call positive emotions, those are all masks for love. They are actually love, but people are afraid to call it love because of the vulnerability that exposes. And when you boil things down in life to that degree, it makes it much easier to clarify your motivation and the motivation of others, so that you can say, before putting a thought in your head, words in your mouth, or action in your life, what is motivating this, fear or love? If it's fear, then question, is that serving you? Is that serving others? Let it go. And if it's love, then be courageous and do that thing. And I think that Ty represents that in the series, and I strive to do so in my life.
Nice, 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 nice. So what we do when we conclude with our, and you kind of did it, but we're going to let you go ahead and take us out of here. So we've allowed all of our speakers to kind of have like the final say. What was the one thing you want to leave with the students today? Just anything in general. Maybe if you have a key to life, but you have the last
Yeah, I
word.
think that,
So
I mean, I really do think I just covered that. So do the rewind afterwards, but also get clear on what you want, like not what other people want, not the script that you're living for your parents or your society or what you're supposed to do, but like, what do you want in life? And how can you take some concrete steps to make that happen right now? Because until you clarify your reason why that you are doing things, then you're unlikely to do anything at all, or just spin your wheels in some survival oriented direction instead of some growth mindset. I recommend journaling in the morning and meditating. The first 20 minutes and the last 20 minutes of the day are what you call your golden 20 minutes when you're in natural theta brainwave state, which as a hypnotist, I used to talk about in my shows and speeches as well. You're in beta and alpha during the day, you're in delta when you're in deep sleep, but you're in theta when you're having lucid dreams, when your imagination becomes reality in your mind. That occurs normally when you wake up in the morning and you're about to go to sleep at night. So it's a really good time to just meditate on what it is that you're grateful for, what it is that you want to manifest in your life, and make it a reality by writing it down, by journaling it and refining it and clarifying that every day. And if one of those things happens to be to train your voice and increase your communication skills, then I invite you to join us in my private Facebook group where I'm going to be giving exercises and experiments that you can do to start to move in that direction, because you never know where it may take you.
yes, absolutely. Thank you, Josh. Everybody, this was Joshua Seth. Please look him up on all of his pages that he gave earlier. But Josh, you can throw them out one more time so people
Yeah,
can find you.
joshuaseth.com is the website for the speeches, the keynotes, and trainings, and everything else. Official Joshua Seth on Facebook, joshua.seth on Instagram, Joshua Seth on the Twitter. Oh, and don't forget Cameo if you want a shout out for a birthday, special occasion, or just to break up with your significant other. Be happy to do that for you.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Well,
I'm
Joshua
waiting for
Seth,
that to come in
that's funny.
because
That's fun.
quarantine's hard, people.
Right. So Joshua Seth is not our only star this week. If you were tuning in this afternoon, we'll be with Chris Handles. He holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the furthest kneeling basketball shots made backwards. He's on the Harlem Globetrotters. We got Terry Lomax tomorrow at 3. She's going to teach about brand strategy. Chris Sabat, another voice actor, primarily doing acting with DBZ. Go ahead, Leah, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, Jaime Camille. He is very well known for being Rogelio on Jane the Virgin, and is on a bunch of telenovelas. Zach Gowen, who has a very inspirational story, used to be a WWE wrestler. Danielle Fishel was Topanga in Boy Meets World. That's her best known role, but she's been in tons of other stuff as well. Justin, finish us out.
Al Roker, Daytime Emmy Awards. You know him, NBC. Trisha, Joshua, another Joshua, look at that. Triplet from CBS's The Neighbors with Cedric the Entertainer. We got Sway from MTV, Sway in the Morning, and Cedric Yarborough, obviously Reno 911, Boondocks, and BoJack Horseman. So we hope that you all join us, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
guys.
Josh.
My pleasure. Stay safe.